is really poised for growth in a lot of ways. And the great thing about a forum like this is where you as residents can really impact what gets built, because no matter who you are as a developer, you still have to go through a public process. And if you can get involved early, you can really help drive that process. I can't tell you we have a specific plan in mind of what we're going to do with the vacant lots, but I can tell you that what is very attractive to us as a developer, what we hope will be attractive to the neighborhood, is commercial development. Stores, some form of food service, and commercial office space where small businesses can move into this area, and particularly those that work for the city, with the city, have to do business with the city. Largely they've been priced out a lot of the downtown core. So they're going to be looking for a location, and that's really what sells this area, aside from the people, is the location. You can kind of get from almost anywhere. That's where you need to go from here. It's great roads. I hope there'll be better roads, Sean, as far as the traffic choke points that are at the, as we all know, at the corners of Minnesota and Pennsylvania, but that'll be dealt with. But again, what we're looking forward to is the next 5 or 10 years, what's going to be a pretty exciting process. Most developers will not tell you exactly what they're going to be doing because they want to keep their options open, and we're no different. But a lot of what we end up doing will be a reflection of what we can get approval through the community. So we're here to listen a lot tonight as to what the neighbors want to see happen here over the next 5 to 10 years. But I can assure you that it's going to be an exciting time for everybody involved. So thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to both talking and listening to what happens tonight.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
I am Rob Tate, and I work with Jair Lynch Real Estate Partners. I tell a joke when we first looked at purchasing the property, and Jair said, "Hey, got another project for you." I was actually just wrapping up on the Kip Lane project that's right off of East Capitol on Blaine Street in Southern. He was, "Hey, I got something over not too far away. I'm getting ready to buy a shopping center." So the first thing I asked him was, "Will I on punishment?" Just because it's like, what, you give me something else in Ward 7, I kind of wanted something a little bit more exciting. He's like, no, here's the area, drive by, take a look. And when I drove back by here, I was like, oh yeah, I've always seen this area kind of coming by. I've always kind of looked at this property, and I said, and I went back to him, and we had a little bit more of a longer conversation and tried to figure out some development options. We got real excited. We, just like Bruce said, a lot of times you don't necessarily get properties saying that, yeah, you're going to be rigid in your approach, saying that you're going to do this. You buy it with the intent that, hey, this is a good property. I know that we can figure something out. We can figure out something and work with the community and give them something that they can get excited about. So that's what we're really looking at doing. I talked to Reverend Dr. Curry earlier, and we were just kind of going back and forth. I've been in D.C. for about 10 years now. And I kind of visited back and forth beforehand, and so we were kind of joking about how, like, Columbia Heights and U Street and those areas, back in the day, those aren't places you really wanted to walk around when it turns dark time. Those weren't good places to be. It wasn't a great place to live. But now you look how those communities changed, and how now you have a booming and bustling area. This area is no different than those areas, 10, 15 years back. And I wholeheartedly believe that this area can get to where those areas are now. So I look forward to working with you all, other people like Bruce in this area, who obviously is here for the long haul, with this amount of properties here, and trying to just bring you guys something that you actually need, something that you actually want. And as Jimmy always says, the liquor stores, daycares, something that you can actually use and use on a daily basis. So definitely really excited about that. Thanks for inviting me out.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am Kendrick Curry, and I'm pastor of the Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church, and I just welcome you, first of all, here to our wonderful church. I am very much interested in this discussion tonight because since 1954, this church has existed, and we have served and currently serve over 15 or more different community groups and other sorts of groups that happen to meet here on a regular basis. Groups from much like here at Penn Branch to DuPont Park to AARP, etc. And the buildings that you're looking at, particularly the first building since 1954 was constructed, this building has been here since 1964. And so since that time, very little in terms of facade changes and upgrades have happened. And since Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist owns the property between, pretty much the property between 30th and 31st, with the exception of those 3 houses on 31st, we have a grand opportunity to do something that is significant in the lives of the people in the context of community. I live immediately in this neighborhood. In fact, I live just in the next block. And I don't know about you, but I need to see some other things that make the community livable. Specifically, I need to see something like good health care. I need a good grocery store, need some other sorts of commercial retail and other things. But I don't want this to be intrusive, neither do we want anything that would price those who are currently here out of the market. We gotta say that. So I'm very much interested in this whole idea of development. Many folk don't know I've been here 14 years, but prior to coming here, I was a research chemical engineer. No, I haven't built houses, bridges, but I have built a chemical plant or two, so I know just a little bit about the whole understanding of this building process. And I'm here tonight to engage you and hear from you in terms of a conversation. This conversation is a very interesting one because 5 years ago when this conversation was held, the audience looked totally different. 10 years ago when this conversation was held, the audience looked totally different. 14 years ago when this same conversation was held, the audience looked totally different. So now we're looking at something that's moving through time, and we're going to have to come to a point where we see some real action. We've talked for a very long time, and I'm looking forward to engaging in this process so that we can begin to move forward. So I just thank you, and I look forward to having more dialogue with you so that we can talk about what is our real philosophy of community development. How do we have something that brings us together? And when we get something that can bring us together, how do we together begin to make this thrive? So that in our case at Pennsylvania Avenue, we can live, play, work, and worship on this plot of land that we have. Thank you so much. And I look forward to the rest of the discussion.
So thank you very much, and like I said, wanted to acknowledge all the people who've worked so hard. I also missed, I think Alberta Paul was actually out there, and I mentioned Barbara Morgan, who I see is still here. Derek from Marshall Heights Community Development, CQ Cover, Travis. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned a few people. So we're going to get started. Stephen Down is going to go over the pitch book that I told you about, and this is really from a detailed study that was done on Pennsylvania Avenue. So just for a few minutes, and after that we're going to open it up and start the dialogue.
Okay, so I'm really just going to walk through this to sort of give you an idea of the content of what we put in here, so this is right as we move forward. So again, the whole idea was a live, work, play, past, present, future. And the goal of the document was to familiarize people who are not familiar with this area and all the things that this area has to offer. There's been things that have been really kind of well-kept secrets for years that it really just kind of behooves people to know who might be considering moving into the area. And this kind of reminds us of some of the resources we have in the community. We can go forward. So folks, I'm sure everybody recognizes Time Work. There's only 2 places to eat around here, so I'm sure. Just keep going. So again, the goal was to really get all the communities that are in the area contributing to this pitch book. That's kind of what we kind of go over here, but let's move forward a little bit. Keep going. So live, work, play. Keep going. So this kind of just gives us a neighborhood snapshot of this area and the different neighborhoods that all make up the neighborhoods along the corridor. So we make sure we have representation from each of these different areas because they all touch points that we have as we go from Susan Bridge and up. We're going forward. Some of what we wanted to include was just kind of demographics of the area, which we understand, change over time. Just to kind of give you a sense of where we stand versus the rest of DC overall. Let's move forward. So part of what the group that did this presentation did was they really went around and talked to the residents to kind of get a sense and a feel for what they appreciated about living in Ward 7. So what you see throughout the document is different quotes from those residents they spoke to. So cathedral trees. I think it's really underappreciated how beautiful the Fort Circle parks are. Like this is kind of our own version of Rock Creek Park. There's been some things for the folks who've been here for a while. They know there's been changes in the park. Like there were streams and paths that were previously closed for years and now being reopened recently. So just a lot of that is, really for a lot of folks, their views are right over the park. They're facing the park. We have a lot of the same wildlife you see across the different parts of the city. Just really beautiful area. So these next two slides kind of really focus on the past, the area, some of the changes and some of the things that happened of significance in Ward 7 and along that kind of corridor. Let's move forward. And then there's the changing nature of the community. Meaning, again, there are changes that are happening just outside of it. This general population and demographic of DC is changing, and we're going to be able to become a part of that. Let's move forward. Okay, so again, we're just kind of touching on the present density of row houses and apartments, and something that I'm sure I'm going to want Bruce and Lindsay to speak to later. As far as density, this is always a touchy topic. But there's a little bit of give and take, and a lot of things that we want to see in this community are really just not going to be possible without it. When you look at building, things that are close to the market rate apartments and market rate condos, and just being able to have places that have retail at the bottom, that density is really needed, and it's what developers are currently doing from a build standpoint in order to sustain a lot of what they were essentially building in the community. So we covered just different aspects of commutes, Penn corridor, compared to the rest of DC, some of the properties and real estate in the area, and really again focusing on why people want to live in Ward 7. We have yards. This is not a community where you get all the houses jammed one on top of each other. We really have, and it's really a large amount of space compared to most property in the DC area. And the views. Let's keep it forward. So, some of the houses of worship that are in the area. Let's keep going. So here we kind of get into the future. So there's a ton of opportunity in this area for development. So infill development just of course being properties already there that's underutilized, and then the ability to add affordable housing, speaking to what Reverend Kurt was speaking to earlier. Let's move forward. So part of what we did was to have the group go out and identify some of the areas that have been sitting vacant for a long time or really have potential for being developed. So throughout the document, you'll see different locations that have been identified as potential development sites. Keep it forward. Let's keep going. So again, highlighting some of the things that have already been built out, like the grays. Things I think we can agree were executed, but not executed in a way that really made them sustainable. And folks who live in the area obviously aware of like the Yes Organic Market that came in really just because of really poor planning from the perspective of access to the grocery store. Where do you park? How do you get to it? There's a lot of challenges that we actually kind of touched on inside the Penn branch development document that kind of spoke to the fact that when people are traveling up and down the corridor, it's hard to get to the other side from a pedestrian perspective and from a driving perspective. So some of the reasons that the retail at the bottom of that development didn't fare as well as it should have, and not only did the Yes Organic Market, which was a higher price point than the eventual grocery store that was there, didn't make it, that grocery store didn't make it as well, it's really because just the location and just the lack of planning that needs to happen in that whole intersection there. So not only is it a matter of getting new development put in, but it's also having the city work with us to say, maybe there needs to be some redesign to, a lot of these transportation hubs, because there's challenges that we run into from a commute perspective and just accessing the area, whether you're on foot, in the car, on the bike, or what have you. Move forward. So again, another potential development site. I'm pretty sure we all agree that we don't need 4 gas stations at one intersection. So something else that needs to be addressed, and just kind of highlight those pieces. So moving on to the work. This is kind of just, again, points to the thriving history of Pennsylvania Avenue and what used to be there. Pictures of Morton's for the folks who remember that. And then present, and really a lot of the resources out there that that could potentially help us in our push to get development, because it's not just the developers against the city, it's private capital being invested, it's other organizations like CBCs that help provide the funding and the help and the guidance to move forward with some of the things we want to see in the community. So opportunities for business, I think that's a huge deal. There's so many things that are lacking in this area, so I think a lot of you probably have seen the articles that come out recently about this being a food desert. Like, we've got a couple of grocery stores that serve this entire area as compared to like 6 or 7 in some of the other wards. So a huge gap that needs to be addressed. But we also want to, in the process, again, maintain some of the things that we treasure already about the area. The Hope Project, which is a project inside the Penn Branch Shopping Center, is something that we would want to see stay around. This is something that not only from a business standpoint is great, but it's actually providing education and training resources to people who actually live in this community. So there has to be a balance between development, for things we want to see from a convenience standpoint, but also just actually providing resources and training for the area, for residents of the area. Let's move forward. Again, here we highlight and this just goes to show you how many places are either not really being utilized or potential sites for development. So again, this is not a final version, but we just kind of went through and looked and saw, what is an eyesore, what is underutilized, what do we think could be better used than what is being currently used for today. And to get those people involved in the conversation, which we started to do. Let's keep moving forward. Again, we talked to different residents and got an idea of what people want to see in the area. So some of the things that people suggest as potential future tenants and things that we want to, from a convenience standpoint, and just what's that? I'm sorry. Just from a potential future tenant standpoint, what we want to see in the area. So some of the things people talked about were a gym, a fitness. A gym, fitness studio, a yoga studio, local government services, somewhere to go have coffee, a chain restaurant, a sit-down chain restaurant, of course the grocery stores we talked about, and even office space, because there's a ton of companies that would like to have office space that we wouldn't mind having them in this area as well, because again, prices in other parts of the city are so exorbitant. It would be a good place for them to relocate. We can have a site that's not only residential, but also shared commercial space as well. Anacostia Park. There's been a lot of development that's been coming down Anacostia Park, slowly but surely. Of course, most of the money right now is over in the wharf. I'm sure many of you have heard about the Bridge Park that they're building. It's right down the way. So we're starting to see that kind of trend of things to move down the Anacostia Park. Right now, our access is probably the worst to it. It took me probably 6 months of being over here to even figure out how to get to Anacostia Park and across the bridge. It was one brave day I decided to make a right and another right, and ended up actually on Anacostia Park, and we got there and it was beautiful. Like, this thing stretches the entire way, all the way back down. I literally just drove to see how far it went. I was surprised how much it's connected. So I think we are seeing hopefully some good momentum and good progress, because they're starting to open up a lot of the pathways that connect this riverway and those park areas that go all the way up to Maryland. So like even now, I actually went to the Bridge Park tour, and that walk along the back of the Navy Yard originally used to be closed at night. So what they're doing now is they as a part of that Bridge Park Bridge or Bridge Park project, they asked them like, hey, can you open up during the day so folks can walk down from the Navy Yard and the wharf area down to where they're going to eventually build the Bridge Park. I guess Navy got tired of coming down there, unlocking it and relocking the gates and everything, just left it open and said, no, y'all can just have it. Now people can walk from that location down to where the bridge park is going to be. So we would love to see that continue on down to here. I mean, we've got waterfront property that's completely been a waste for years as far as utilization. I think it's a major feature of this area. Let's keep going on. Okay, let's keep moving. So this, again, a lot of things over here, again, underutilized. So Fort DuPont Park Ice Rink and Fort DuPont Ice Hockey Club, I think it's the oldest African-American hockey club in the country that a lot of people just are not aware of. Let's move forward. So you guys right there. We've been seeing some, things that, some development that is, or just some additional attention to providing things of beauty in the area. So a lot of these libraries they put around the city, they've really taken care to make it really unique and standout architecture is what we have right now in the Francis Gregory Library. Keep moving forward. The Woodland Tigers, another community group that's been around here for a while. The National Youth Baseball Academy. Again, these things, some of them fall outside of the immediate area of our concern, but just still, just gyms and boards that have been not as known as some other benefits and resources in the city. And again, it goes back to the parks and amenities. We have a ton of parks running through the entire neighborhood. Again, that really could be even better utilized. We've had the city start making, I guess the Park Service really started making some efforts to make them more accessible to the community, and we look forward to see that kind of increasing as we go forward. And again, just a list of kind of the things we can do in the area. Let's move forward one more time. And again, even some of the studies and about just improvements that can be done, not just from a development standpoint, but from a traffic standpoint. I think, again, the biggest focus for us, the biggest difficulty for us is that the parking lot there is Pennsylvania Avenue in the morning on commutes, and just how that can be improved right as you get to where Thai Orchid is and where a lot of that congestion happens. And just, again, having to deal with folks running across the street and doing weird things, trying to get back to 295 in different segments because it's just not really a well-designed intersection. So again, you all are welcome to take a look at this document. By request, we can have printed copies if you want to provide feedback to what we've already put together. But this is definitely something we want to put together and be able to share with the community, get your feedback and some of the things we might have missed from any of those categories that need to be shared.
Sorry, how do you get access to it?
You can contact me. I'll provide my information. And these are the folks we actually work with from Johns Hopkins that were had a set of varied backgrounds that were able to come together and put this document together with our input. All right, so I think Jimmy, you want to open up to questions and answers?
Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the panel. And Stephen's a little bit modest because he was at the 11th Street Bridge, but he was also on the news. They interviewed him about the whole program, so it was a credit to that. So if you follow our Twitter, you can see that we tweeted about it, and you can see excerpts from that. So next step that we want to do, I know several of you asked about the pitch book. I'll talk to you later about how to get that, but also use it to drive you to our website because we will post excerpts with permission on our Penn Branch DC website. So if you don't have that, I'll give it to you after this. So what we want to do is open everything up. I know there's a lot of questions. Again, keep your questions focused on Pennsylvania Avenue, the development along Pennsylvania Avenue, what's germane to the topic. This is the second of a two-part series that we had on economic development. And after that, we'll go back underground and continue to work. So hopefully we'll involve more people in this room in the development of Pennsylvania Avenue. So one of the questions that we were asked that came from our executive board is really to the developers, is that what are the things that you think are some of the key impediments to development in an area like this? What are the things that stop development? What are the roadblocks that give you pause when it comes to talking about development? I'll start with Lindsay because I think she might have a good idea.
Aside from money, Pennsylvania Avenue is, the way it is right now, is a huge barrier. Corridors like this can be connectors, but it's a huge barrier. And then, so it doesn't really connect. It's a pass-through. So doing something about Pennsylvania Avenue so that it connects all the neighborhoods east of the river and connects the east of the river neighborhoods to west of the river is a major barrier, but it's also an opportunity. Every barrier is an opportunity.
Okay, Bruce, do you?
I think Stephen hit on this, but, and this goes against some of what some people may want, but there needs to be more density in certain areas, because if you don't have that, you're not going to attract stores that can be supported. So there'll be certain areas that will have to be upzoned or rezoned or whatever, but where the density has to be increased. And that's going to run counter, or at least be a challenge, because you got choke points right now in Minnesota and Pennsylvania, but that's part of the plan that needs to be developed. So you can get in and out of the area quickly, you can get to the stores, and the people that do have the stores can survive and prosper.
Thanks, Bruce. Rob?
I'll say it since you don't want to. It is money. I mean, that's just the honest truth. In order to be frank, I have a money man, right? We go to the money man when we need money, when we want to do development, right? The money man wants his money rain, sleet, snow, or sunny. And the bottom line is, when you look at different areas, a lot of times you have to say, all right, what can work just from a sustainability standpoint from our financial models that we actually put together. And a lot of times, just because of these other impediments that were mentioned, I think that density being one of the key ones, you have to be able to explain, hey, you're buying into this dream, right? And at the end of the day, if this dream doesn't pencil from a financial standpoint, a lot of this stuff just isn't sustainable. So for us, a lot of times when you go into areas like these, you want to try to work with the city as much as possible to understand what kind of subsidies can be offered, what kind of incentives can the government offer to retailers to make places like this a little bit more encouraging to come to. I think DMPA, the Deputy Mayor's Office of Planning and Economic Development, they're very good with that, with putting together different programs and grants and things of that nature in order to kind of help out with that. But yeah, outside of the other two things that they mentioned, I think that money is absolutely one of the key factors.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to the floor, and I know we also have Councilman Vincent Gray, who's going to actually stop through also, so I'm going to go ahead and start taking questions. Any questions from anybody in the room? I see two hands in the back. I'll start with the one way in the back first.
Me?
Yes.
Oh.
You, Robin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to say good evening. I appreciate this. I moved here for a specific reason. I've only been here 20 years. And as I look around, I see people who have been here for generations. Being observant of what's happening around DC, there does not appear to be much interest in retaining populations who have been here for generations. What guarantees do we have that that'll be different here? And also with this development, will we look like anywhere in USA? As opposed to liquor stores and daycares where we have a Starbucks or CVS or something like that. So I guess it's twofold. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to repeat that part. So the end of your question is this: what can we do? I wasn't quite clear.
She said what? Which one? The first part?
Yeah, one. Yeah, because I assume you want them to answer.
What type of guarantees do we, as an established community, we're not new here, but an established community, seeing what's happening in DC, that our right to be here will be respected?
So your question is about being displaced, people being moved out, gentrification?
Maintaining the character.
Maintained.
It's
Okay.
maintaining the character.
Okay. So Rob said he has it.
Yeah.
And he can have it.
Since I got drafted, I actually think that that's a very good question, and I think that part of the issue is you don't have, folks like Bruce who actually, you're in this community, right? I mean, you're dedicated to this. You bought properties, you've been here, you talk to the community. A lot of developers come in and they think they know what the community wants, right? And they say like, oh yeah, you're used to the store. Now, yeah, I will give you a Starbucks and you'll be happy. It's not just about that. It's not about that interaction and trying to be a neighbor. You're seeing this as nothing more than an asset so that you can make money. You can't necessarily go for me personally, the suburban route for the shopping center, right? You still are in an urban market, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think the key thing is just really just interacting with the community and getting an understanding of what it is that the community wants and trying to provide that to them. But in terms of like displacing folks, that is kind of more of a difficult answer, because what tends to happen is with development comes more expensive product, right? And a lot of times, folks aren't necessarily thinking about it.
I'm sorry, it can be done in a way to support the community that is there. This is a community already here. This is a community. I mean, and I do believe that it can be done to support us, those who have lived here for generations, those who want their children to live their homes, where they grew up, to be able to purchase them. I have to disagree here. I believe there is a way.
So I have two questions. So my only comment is, for me personally, I would like to be able to walk somewhere and buy something. That's the balance. I would like to be able to shop without going across the bridge or going to a dirty Safeway, and it is a dirty Safeway. So right. So that's what, and I'm going to quick with my opinions, because I saw a question over here first, to the right, someone that had their hand up, that was sitting down, and then I'm going in order that I saw, and then the guy in the green, you had a question.
Hi, my name is Craig Vaughn. I've been in this community for some time and have presented ideas for the economic development in the past, and a lot of these ideas just seem to fall on deaf ears. So the thing is that, how is it that folks that are new to this area can get immediate access to these panels and economic development ideas and all this stuff, but people that are existing, been in this community for years, never heard of some of these area issues, yet they're saying that they're getting input from the community as far as economic development. I mean, I want to build a museum. I want to build a cultural arts and entertainment center. I want to build an arts center. I want to build a car wash up the street. I want to build things in this community, a bar and grill. These things that I had, I mean, Baltimore's great. Johns Hopkins, I think they took a old theater, movie theater, and redeveloped it into an arts center or something over there in Baltimore. I mean, I had an idea for something like that, the Cultural Arts and Entertainment Center. Did it to Marshall Heights Community Development, they didn't give a damn. So my thing is that, how is it that we that are in this community be a part of these economic development ideas and be able to participate directly as far as applying our input into these development issues? Because folks, I mean, yeah, who they came in, recently to do this stuff, but the people that are here are ignored. Why? How is that going to change? How can we put our direct input on this type of stuff?
Okay, I'm going to give him a chance to answer the question.
I just want to clarify one thing. The students who worked on this project, all of them were from the district.
Could you restate the question, please?
Right, because people can't hear.
The question was, why is it that people who are outside the neighborhood were involved in planning for the neighborhood, and that didn't seem right? And I just want to clarify that all the students who worked on this were from the district, and not all of them, but some of them were from Ward 7. And some of them were actually from one of the neighborhoods east of the river. So they weren't a bunch of strangers, and they weren't from somewhere else. And so that's all I can say.
And just to clarify, I think the question was really about folks who are just moved to the area, being able to have input. This committee is made out of at least 15 folks. and a lot of those folks have been in this area for years. Some of them maybe been in this area for almost as long as I've been alive. So Vivica, Earl, we've got a number of folks on the committee who have been there for a long time. So I'm probably, well, not probably, I'm actually probably the person who's been in the area the most recent. The majority of the committee is people who have been in this area for years. So to your question, it's not a collection of folks who just moved to the area and come in and trying to impose changes on folks. A lot of these folks on this panel have been on that panel for a long time.
Stephen, why don't you have us stand up with the members of the committee?
I'm sorry.
Why don't you have people stand up on the committee?
Oh, sure. Committee members, please, stand up.
This sure was, and this was not the committee.
I've been in this neighborhood since 1967. I've been in my house since 1971. When I moved to this neighborhood, Penn Branch had a steakhouse where the bank is. It had a ladies' clothing store where the 7-Eleven is. We had places that we could go and shop. We had a Safeway that had good produce. And it was a meeting place for the people in the neighborhood. What happened, white folks started moving out of the neighborhood, so they took all the businesses away. And as a result, the things that have come into the neighborhood are not top quality. My question is, when you're going to do a revitalization, are we going to get something that's going to be worth having in the neighborhood? Because we've had a Yes on the corner, we've had another store to move in where the Safeway was, and the food was terrible. It is not fair to us to revitalize and not give us quality products. If we can't get quality products, kill the whole thing, because it's not going to be worth it.
So hopefully everyone heard. So do you want them to answer a question or comment, or? No, you can't. Okay, that was a good comment. So if you didn't hear, what she said is revitalization. It's got to be quality, and if you can't be quality, or if it's failed places like Yes, then kill the whole thing, essentially. She's like, we've got to have top quality revitalization. Next question. There was a lady in a blue hat who stood up.
Thank you very much. My name is Glenda Richmond. I'm a Ward 1 resident. Seriously, I was thinking about...
I tell you what, I'm going to ask people to just come up and speak to the mic, because we can't hear. So if you have a question, just stand right here in line, and we'll answer your question. But I will monitor just to make sure we limit our time.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes and a question.
I don't think I have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, we need you to be brief, because we got to get other people.
My name is Glenda Richmond. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you what has happened in my community.
Which is your community?
U Street, 15th and U Street, a senior citizen building.
Okay, sorry, I can't. What I want to focus, and what I said earlier,
This is in relationship to Ward 7.
if it's focused on Penn Branch Avenue, that's what this is about.
Well, I just want to take the time to say, I really would not want to see what has happened in my ward to happen out here.
Or any other one.
The thing about it is that, what I'm hearing is that the developer had mentioned that he wanted wards, or they're looking at the possibility of Ward 7 becoming a place where you work, what was the other one? Work, play,
And live.
live, work, and play. What has happened in my community is all about the play. So many bars, so many restaurants. Okay, we do have Harris Teeter and all these other places moving into our neighborhood, but I'm going to tell you, it's a disaster. Because what has happened in our ward, in Ward 1, you get a lot of young folks with no stake in the community. A lot of students coming from American University, George Washington, and so forth. They're there. People, hold on to your community. Hold on to your community, for heaven's sakes. Don't allow folks to come in here and develop your property without you. You don't have to beg them. Tell them. Demand from your developers what it is that you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well said. I really appreciate it.
Don't let it become a 8 to 8.
Have a line up in
Okay, just line up so you.
My name is Marla Dean, and I've lived in this community for going on 10 years now, but I live on O Street, so this directly impacts my neighbors across the street. This is their backyard that we're talking about. And I think that there's a lot going on here in terms of generation, new people coming over. These are the tensions that you always get. But I implore, when they have people stand up and talk about who's on this committee, no one from O Street was on the committee.
That's not true.
From our block. It's going to be immediately impacted. And I think you get better results and better buy-in when you have everyone at the table, even if it makes it more difficult over time. But you get there and people come to a common understanding. And so when you heard the Robin say, you know, the neighborhood is changing, there's a reason why she came, she wants to preserve certain character, we have to listen to those voices, but we also have to know that there are new people who are coming and they have some needs too. And we can't get there if we think innovatively. We don't have to do what U Street did, we don't have to do what Columbia Heights did, we can do what Penn Branch wants to do, and it could be a new way of doing it, and we can meet those needs. It can preserve the character, but if those voices are pushed out, then people are going to resent over time what has happened to their communities.
Thank you. Ayana?
You know, I want everyone to please understand, no decisions have been made. No decisions have been made. We put together a framework that you get to have input on. So it's not like we made any decisions. Decisions have not been made. This is a framework that you get to, or a canvas. Now it's a canvas. It's got little marks on it. Now you get to finish the picture. So don't think that decisions have been made. That's not happened.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you, Earl.
All right, I just have a comment, just for our neighbors, not so much for the panel. Rob Tate contacted me, just because he heard my name in the community, he heard I was interested in economic development in our community, and he reached out to me just to get the word on the street of what our community wanted for the Penn Branch Shopping Center. That's to be applauded, if you ask me. They don't have to be here today. I don't know any of these people, but I do appreciate them being here just to listen, because in other communities there has been development, and like the woman from U Street indicated, there's not always someone listening. I have a 2-year-old, I am 44, first of all, it's too old to be having babies, but I have a 2-year-old and I have a 7-year-old, and they need to go to college. So I do care about the value of my home. I do care about how economic development, the appreciation of my home. And so if Starbucks is going to help me send my kids to college by opening up on Pennsylvania Avenue, I'm open to that. I also believe that there are other types of businesses that I believe our community will support other than liquor stores, but we have to actually support those businesses. From a business, I'm a business owner. No one's going to go where you're not going to support them. And we've had other businesses in this community that we haven't supported. So we have to come together as a community to support the businesses that are in our community, and we want to attract high quality businesses. Well, Whole Foods is not going to open up here if they don't feel like they can be supported. And that's one of the arguments we've heard repeatedly in the community. We have to work together as a community also to support the businesses the quality businesses in our community if we want to attract other quality businesses. I would like to attract other quality businesses because I would like to be able to send my children to college. I would like the value of my home to increase. So this is on us also. This is not just on these developers to just come up with some solutions and solve all of our problems as a community. Some of the problems that occur in our community are us. And so we have to look within also. And I just wanted to say that I live here and I care about the same things that you guys care about. I want to be able to walk to a coffee shop. Actually, one of the things that Rob and I talked about was just some of these developers who may have empty space may be interested in just utilizing the space for pop-ups, just to see what could work in the community. And then you're not tied to anything long-term, so you have the whole entire back of the Penn Branch Shopping Center that's empty. Turn it into a Union Market type of situation where you have pop-ups there on the weekends, but you're giving some new businesses an opportunity to try out our community to see how we support them. But you have to support those businesses. And my business just won Best of DC 2000.
Ayana, tell me the name of your business.
I own the escape room on 8th Street. The escape room. I am a long-time DC resident. I'm an die in the District of Columbia. But one of the things that the young lady indicated, and I'm just going to address it real quickly, is about traffic barriers. We are working very closely with these developers, and when I say we, DC Department of Transportation, to mitigate. So I want you to know tonight, we have purchased the parkland at Minnesota and 27. But when we have a meeting, as our contractor said earlier tonight, we want the room filled just like this. Because I've lived here long enough and has done this long enough to be able to say to you 3 months after construction start, where were you when we wanted your input? Right. So you all have a copy of this, and if you don't, go to www.dc.dot and download it. Look at the proposed changes at that intersection. Quickly, we're going to try to make it easier for buses to turn and not stack up in the intersection. We're going to make the island, we're going to push the island back so that we can make a left turn and get you out of the way from the AM traffic. We're going to let Minnesota roll 2 ways from the intersection of Pennsylvania going toward East Capitol. Look at the plan. Businessmen, look at the plan. See you on the 27th.
Thank you, Alberta.
Thank you, Alberta.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Can you hear me? My name is Tiffany Williams, and I'm actually a newbie to the neighborhood. I've been here about 1.5 years, but I've been in DC a while. I went to Howard, and what brought me to Penn Branch is because I'm from Dallas, Texas, and Penn Branch reminded me of a little bit of Texas. It gave me a little bit of my yard that I needed. It gave me a community of people. And one thing that I realized that I think is important to share with the developers, even though the generations now are starting to vary. There's going to be more young people. There's going to be different races that are going to be moving in together. But a lot of us want the same thing. We want a community. We want somewhere where we can have children. I have an 8-month-old that they can play in the backyard. They can run around outside. They can make friends. They can ride their bikes. And we are going to be the people who would be willing, who want to support the businesses. Like, we're not just passerbyers. I've learned that from all my neighbors. We are there, you may need the density, but I think because of the quality of support you would get, and that's instilled in the neighborhood, which is what I love about the neighborhood, these are like the 100% supporters. So the passerbys will be, a little bit here and there, but we're going to be the ones who want to come out of our homes and come to Penn Branch, because that's what we're looking for. And we moved into the neighborhood with the dream of that coming. And I guess one of my requests, I'm in design as well, and so when I go to different places, I'm an experiencer. So what that means to me is Penn Branch can look a lot. There are cities out there that can model what the intergeneration, the generations out here could benefit from. And to me, cities like Charlotte have created pockets of beautifulness. And because it's not going to be a lot of land, there's not a lot of land to develop. So you have to make sure that the buy-in comes from us. And to me, cities like Charlotte that take small areas and they don't make it dense, they make it beautiful and meaningful. And they have these farm-to-table restaurants. There's a lot of us who farm and who have, planter boxes. So these are things that we would totally support. And so it would have to be more cultural, more communal, which is what the people who moved here really love. And so I'm gonna, if there's a possibility, of course, I would like to make myself maybe someone who can speak more to my neighbors, because since I understand the design work, sometimes you can bring it back and make it more concise for developers to understand, because I speak the language. So I'm gonna throw myself out there. I'm putting myself on a committee if it's a possibility.
Yes.
Because again, I think that we're willing to put in the work to support if the businesses look like something we would want to be a part of.
Thank you.
That's right. I'll give it to Stephen.
So before we get too far in the meeting, so I do want to tell you, we've been making calls and asking for people to join this Economic Development Committee. Every meeting that I have, I ask for people to join. I send out emails, we put in a whole lot of hours. So if you're not there, it's not because I hadn't asked, or we haven't asked. Don't do that. We haven't asked. We've made it very clear. So I can tell you now, do me a favor. info@pennbranchdc.org is our website. So write it down. This is our email. info@pennbranchdc.org. Or you can email me directly at jimmywilliams@pennbranchdc.org. JIMMIE, the country way, Williams@pennbranchdc.org. Or you can call me on my cell phone at 202-669-3974. Most people in the area have it, but I'll give it to you again. 202-669-3974. And keep in mind that the purpose of this meeting, as Earl said, it's really, this is just the stock. Right now, everything is on paper. Nothing has been built. This is consensus building. This is getting people. We've got people who are satisfied with the neighborhood the way it is. We got people who want change, and it's consensus. And we've got great examples, just like you said at 8th Street. We know we don't want that. Columbia Road. We have ideas, but unless we have people here giving input, constructive input, it's going to be hard. So you got my number. I'll make sure that you get the information for the presentation. Stephen Dowling is the one that's been driving it, and all these developers are here to help. So next.
2 minutes.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Marshall. I'm a long-time resident here at Penn Branch. And this is for the parent. I just want to know when you all started putting your developments, and you all think it's green, environmental, would anything be environmental friendly?
Our first principle is habitat integrity.
That's all I want to know.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I am Cortez Johnson. I am president of Fairfax Village. Everybody knows Fairfax Village, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have lived in Fairfax Village and come out of Fairfax Village and have families still in Fairfax Village. But one of the reasons why I was asked to come to the meeting tonight is to first applaud all of you guys for all of the work. You being here tonight is a part of the change. I heard somebody saying, how do we know that it's going to be different? We are in the house of the Lord. So all the faith-based people know that by participation and having faith, faith without works is what? Dead. Okay. So what I'm saying, for the faith-based people, we have to give honor to the pastor of this house. But one of the things that I think that I'm looking for, and Fairfax Village is looking for, we use the word revitalization. Faith-based people looked at it, or they call it a revival. It's basically restoring the community, because I think when you look at it from a restoring capacity, it helps people to not be afraid of change. When you're saying, we accept the change that's coming, but we also want you to realize that there's potential that's already here. So when I moved here about 11 years ago, first time 21-year-old guy buying his first property, I was told that there used to be a Morton's. I was told in Fairfax Village there used to be a market, a pharmacy, a bank, all those kind of things. So one of the things that I appreciate is the historicness of the community and this neighborhood. And what I asked this panel to do is to continue looking at this from a revitalization, restoration point of view. I think you will get more buy-in from the older, the newer, and I think once you look at it from that perspective, it will help to, I guess, just stop the fear of the fighting. And the last comment that I'd like to make too is, one of the things that I have heard that happens is, we do have developers that come into the community and they come in with ideas. And we miss the opportunity, and I say we because including myself, because we start fighting internally. And what the developers do is they tiptoe out the room and they say, you know what, I'm going to go into another community because you guys can't figure out how to collectively come to an agreement on a give and take. I think one of the panel members mentioned earlier that it is about give and take. So at this point, we've got to understand that it's not going to be perfect. But it is economic development. We're craving it. We need it. It's required for us to survive in the upcoming community. What it looks like, we're all going to have to give and take on what that looks like. But I don't want you guys to lose the momentum. I'll try to stay involved as much as possible. Everybody knows with Fairfax Village, I know I'm trying to get into heaven because that is a big, big responsibility with those people. But in the same token, I'm just telling you, is Miss Gladys in the room? Y'all know who Miss Gladys is? Okay, I asked her not to come tonight because I said, I'm coming. She said, well, if you don't go, I'm going. I said, okay, I got you, Miss Gladys. But in any event, like I said, I just want to keep the momentum going, and I applaud everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cortez. And Cortez is an active participant on the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you for that. And I started here in Fairfax Village, and then we were able to purchase a home along Branch Avenue. So I just wanted to thank everyone for their engagement, their robustness. It's a beautiful thing. This is community. I do have questions though. So the first being, and if I can just get them all out and then you all react as time permits, but the first being, what additional touch points will we as a community have to engage? And we can all, in addition to the committee, if that's, just what other opportunities. This is an initial sketch and it's very helpful to put context around it, but it's incomplete as you acknowledged, and we want to be able to provide some feedback. The other piece is, Rob, specifically, you mentioned sort of the difference between urban and suburban markets. And I will be honest, that there was a charge that elicited out of me, and I need to workshop that later. But my initial reaction is, it basically goes back to what the community member in the back, who's been here since 1967, mentioned, which is high quality. And so I just don't want urban to translate into something that does not translate across all of the wards throughout the community. I will be very, very transparent here in Hillcrest in particular. You probably can't purchase a property for less than $500,000. Would probably need a couple hundred additional dollars to gut it, and then you have a tax assessment that's above 10.25%. So we're not seeing those investments come into this community. So I'm grateful that you all are here, but I do feel like we need to make sure that the amenities are complementary. They complement rather all that we're seeing throughout the district. They are questions. They really are questions.
Okay.
I'm going to leave.
You want to try to answer those and move forward? All right. Anybody want
So I'll try to be brief and answer your question. In terms of touch points, one of the things that I would like to do is I'm in the process of creating a website so that as kind of like different things come out or we have updated information, we can actually put that on the website such that you all can kind of take a look. Also kind of offer up any suggestions. One of the things that I was really highly thinking about, and now that I actually have the floor, I can ask you all, was possibly putting together like a survey of some sort so that we can kind of get input from you all kind of in an easier way as opposed to kind of sitting here and folks kind of just shouting ideas. I thought that would maybe streamline the process. So yes, no, maybe nod of heads. Think that'll work? Yeah. All right, great. So that'll be one of the ways that.
And people without internet, don't forget low literacy people and people without internet.
We should talk after the meeting.
Excellent. Internet access.
No, honestly, but the other thing in terms of real quick, suburban versus urban, it's more of a, for me, I think of that more in development speaking in terms of the layout of the actual site and not actually the stores itself. And I know that typically I kind of think the same way when I'm not actually talking, when I'm just regular patron. Yeah, you don't want to say urban and think, liquor store or whatever else as opposed to a Panera Bread, right? You just want, it's totally just the layout of the land. It's just how it sits and how you want to put the retailers in the best possible place. What's going to have like that front facing retail as opposed to what'll be kind of like in the back. Does that make sense?
Sorry, the reason I ask is because I also feel like we're 5 minutes from Capitol Hill, right? Office space
Absolutely.
premium where, frankly, you all purchase, and I feel like if the transportation systems were reliable, you would easily have corporate offices here in any other part of, in any other city with the same demographics and sort of built infrastructure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when we did our traffic counts, it was somewhere around 26,000 vehicles per day, like right through that intersection of Pennsylvania and Branch Avenue. That's something we really want to capitalize on, and that's something that we've really been trying to sell to retailers and let them know, hey, this isn't what you actually think. One of the key things that Stephen actually hit on earlier is like the demographic, right? People don't understand the demographic of the area. When you, like you talk about how the home cost of the area and the land value, when you just look at that pocket, just this area, just Hillcrest, Branch Avenue, Fairfax Village, just kind of probably about a mile maybe from Penn Branch or so, you have extremely high median income rates for households.
That's true.
Retail folks don't know that. What unfortunately happens is you all get lumped in with the rest of Ward 7, and people will look and you say like, oh well, you know, it has that stigma. Well, that's not necessarily true. This pocket right here is very, very ripe for, I won't say development now. Now I will use the revitalization. So I think that this community can really go ahead.
Real quick, I'm sorry, was there anybody in here from Councilman Gray's office? Did he leave?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was up front, so I didn't.
Earl, he was, okay, can I just, one quick second?
Okay, quick second.
Real quick, so when I heard somebody talk about Ward 7, are you guys aware that the corridor that is along Benning in Minnesota, that's considered downtown Ward 7? Did you guys know that? Okay, so that's why I support this group, because this group is kind of focusing, like Jimmy was saying, just along the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor, because I think somebody else was mentioning that I think this community sometimes get looped into just Ward 7 in general, and you kind of get lost because there's a lot of underdeveloped area in Ward 7. So I understand that they're entitled, that Dick Street area, all that area over there with the Dorothy Heights, I get it. I totally get that that's what they need. But over here in this community, we do have a lot of cars, right? So he had a Ward 7 Economic Summit some years ago, which I was a part of, and they took all this data and they got information about what the median income is. We found out that there's a lot of women in this side of a ward, right? There's a lot of women versus men. There was this big study that they did with all these fancy little things. But at the end of the day, though, I think what happens is two things: quality of services, and then the commitment, right? Because we get all, I guess, excited about things that are coming in the community, and then they fall apart, right? So what I'm saying is, again, I think that it's good that we're focusing on this corridor, but also, again, revitalization, noticing that we've got a lot of cars. So do we look into like drive-through type of places, not necessarily Burger Kings and McDonald's, but I'm just saying there are areas that you can have where cars can drive through and get things. I think that laundromat used to be a hot shop some years ago and all that kind of stuff. However it may be, but what I'm saying is a lot of people seem like they were mad that they left. It wasn't that they necessarily left, and y'all can educate me in this panel. It wasn't necessarily that those places left because they weren't working, but did they leave because even whatever happened, the money wasn't there, whatever. Again, I'm just saying revitalization. But I hope that we don't get looped into the rest of the movement.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sylvester Bush. I live on Highwood. Been there about 9 years. This is kind of for Jimmy and the committee. I heard a lot from different people about some of the issues, and I was hoping that, the Economic Committee has done a lot of the groundwork, and so I was hoping that they will consider developing a process to kind of bridge the differences, maybe have a brainstorming session, maybe 1, 2, or 3, SWOT analysis, take the fact that you need density, that's an issue. When you brainstorm, you put everything on the paper, nothing comes off, and then you just kind of work through those issues, and then have a mechanism to get the people who want to be involved through this session, and then after your final session, say, okay, here's the document, here's everything, here's the input, it's out there for a moment, a week or two, and then go from there to kind of make sure that we kind of get everything we need. That way everybody feels like they're involved. You've made it's transparent. It doesn't seem like some people on the committee, some people are not on the committee. So that's all my suggestion.
Thank you. And keep in mind, you can't have a committee of 100 people. You just can't.
Okay, I think I know most or a lot of people in this room. My name is David Rutland. I'm going to kind of introduce myself in two spaces. Number one, I'm a Ward 7 resident. I live on 26 Randall Circle, right in the middle of the circle. So I've been there since 2002, right in the middle. When I say the middle, the very middle, the center house. So when you go and make that left on Minnesota, if you're going, I would say south, then I'm to the right. So I'm a vested stakeholder in the outcomes of Penn Branch. I like the 7-Eleven too, so I hope that stays. But also I wear another hat, and I'm the chairman of the board of the Marshall Heights Development Corporation. We've been here since 1979. We've done over, I call it $50 million probably in development. I would say the last major single-family homes that was built on Banneker Ridge on Minnesota Avenue and East Capitol, we developed that. So I'm a big fan of home ownership. I'm a big fan of preserving certain things in the community. And what I'd like to say, I'm not here to offer solutions, but what I am here to do is offer our services, my services as a Ward 7 resident and Marshall Heights. So if the committee, or I'm a big fan of Pastor Curry, so if the committee can use our assistance, we're all in, and as we develop that parcel of land. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Richards, and I live on Carpenter Street. And my concern primarily is that whatever you do is develop in accordance with the existing community norms and with the small area plan. Because I know you're familiar with it, and as you know, the small area plan does call for a maximum height of 50 feet measured from the lowest point, the existing lowest point. And so that's about as much height as we all want. I'm also very interested in making sure you preserve the generous setbacks. Throughout, up and down the corridor, all of the buildings are set back from Pennsylvania Avenue. We don't have anything that's kind of built right to the street line, and we want very much to preserve that, because otherwise we're going to lose our clean and green and open space look, which is, it's a big part of the value and charm of the neighborhood. And also we're looking to respect the topography. We have a hilly neighborhood, and we don't want to have a development that just kind of comes and bulldozes through and levels everything out. And of course, when you're talking about density overall, obviously if you built a solid kind of like wall from, let's say, the Pennsylvania Avenue straight down Branch Avenue, if you build in that entire block, that would be sort of wholly unacceptable. I suppose that I understand that you're considering sort of like a street that goes through the middle, but overall building density, setbacks, and top level setbacks are very important. But if you stick within the small area plan confines and the existing setbacks, you're pretty likely to come up with something most of us can live with. And with regard to, there were one or two other points about that. Because as you know, even if you have a 50-foot minimum, that still is going to give you a penthouse addition. And if you're planning to build housing, you're going to get extra density for your mandatory IZ. And we're already looking at something that's like looking to be like a little bit taller than 50 feet, just under law. So, we're asking you to voluntarily keep it down to 50 feet and not use your total penthouse built levels that you could reach.
Okay, Laura, we're gonna.
That's that baseball.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just wanted to put those on.
Thank you.
You'll get plenty of chances. So Laura is actually, what's the proper, she works with the ANC Commission also. One other person I want to introduce, so I should tell you, Vincent Gray, I know I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's time.
No, Laura is good. About 4 minutes.
He's 4 minutes away. In the meantime, meantime, one other person that was on our panel was Deborah Jones of Ward 7 Planning. So a lot of the business loans that you get along Pennsylvania Avenue, she can tell you about. She's presented here before, and I'm still holding on to her notebook that I promised to get back. But Deborah, I'd like you to say a few words and also fill in the gaps on a lot of the development here, a lot of development discussions that we had here.
Been in the district building all day long. Good evening, my name is Deborah Jones. I'm the director of the Ward 7 Business Partnership. And we have worked with a lot of the businesses along Branch Avenue to coach them to get their Great Streets grants like Howard Photography. Oh, I'm sorry. What am I trying to do? His name, Earl Howard. Earl Howard got a Great Streets grant to do their beautiful facade, the interior of Ty Orchid's Kitchen. That was another Great Streets grant that we coached them to get. So we work with businesses over here. We primarily work over or down Minnesota Avenue or further back towards Deanwood, but our objective and our strategic plan is to work in Greater Ward 7. I've worked with some of the other businesses for the Ward 7 Business Directory that some of you may have seen. And right now, we're funded to, I heard somebody mention downtown Ward 7. This is the Ward 7 Directory. We had teenagers go out and suss out the addresses and phone numbers of a lot of the different businesses in Ward 7. If anybody's interested, to come by the office. I have a few more left. I have 2 tonight, so I don't know if you have one already. But I have a few more in the office if anybody wants to get a copy. But right now we are funded by the Department of Housing and Community Development to kind of spruce up the businesses that are in the streetscape that's going on right now in Minnesota and Benning, the first phase. So that once the streetscape is finished with the new sidewalks, new curbs, the lights, the businesses will look a little nicer. So we're looking right now at what we can do. It's a non-construction grant, so we can't do a lot. We can't do any construction. We can't build anything, but we can certainly paint. We can work with them on unifying the signs and the awnings. I'm in talks right now with the property owners over there because that's who I have to talk to because I'd be touching their buildings. But if anybody is interested in giving us some ideas on how you would want that to look, just give me a call in my office. You can email me at djones@ward7.com. It's WARDSEVEN.com. Or you can call me 202-621-2288 is my office number. And just leave a message. Very often I'm out in the field, but I'll call you right back as soon as I hit my desk. So, is that enough information?
That was really good. Thank you very much.
So what we're going to do is just wrap up. And one of the things I did, like I said, I would like to start on time, but I also wanted to make sure we conclude. So what we're going to do is, if you have any questions that you didn't ask, this is your opportunity, but we're going to really sum up with our developers. And I understand Mr. Gray is maybe 2 minutes away now. I'm sorry, he's here? He's coming in now. Okay, very good. Well, we'll still start with the wrap-up.
I'm not a developer. I'm a teacher and a researcher. This is, I know you all have done this before. This is what happens when you've got contested ideas. And I just think you've all done a really great job tonight of expressing yourselves and being open to one another. And I hope we can keep working with you and don't give up.
Thank you very much. I see Mr. Gray is here, so we'd like to have places to walk to. So that's just a fast forward about it. Steve, I'm going to go ahead and have you, if you want to say anything in conclusion, we can have Mr. Gray, unless you're ready to speak now. Yeah, let the man catch his breath. I gotta agree. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I guess the point is really, like was said earlier, this is not the end, this is the beginning. We're still open to receive feedback and get folks' input and takes on documents that we created, and just to get people's feedback. This is the start of a process. As Earl said earlier, just no decisions have been made. The documents we put together are just that for right now. We definitely welcome anybody's feedback who wants to contribute to how the neighborhood is going to look in the future. It's up to you all.
Can you provide your contact info?
Sure. My phone number is 202-421-3429. Again, that's 202-421-3429. My email is Stephen, PHEN.Downing, DOWNING@gmail.com.
Thank you.
We're going to default close now.
Question in the back. Question in the back.
I'm sorry, I hear you.
What is your committee? The Pennsylvania Avenue East of the River Committee.
It is a collection of residents. We're not. No.
Oh, come on.
We can talk afterwards. Right, and I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. Right, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. Let's move on. I think we have Mr. Gray here waiting to speak. Let's move on.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you all very much. I kind of on the run this evening. I had to speak to the AKAs. Everybody know what the AKAs are?
Yeah, I know.
Who doesn't know what the AKAs are? Man, I can't believe that. It's a great sorority. Anyway, they had a whole group of people down at the Wilson building and I had to speak about healthcare this evening. So I apologize for being a little bit late, but I figured out what maybe somebody's figured out is how to be in two places at one time. Somebody spoke before me, and I couldn't start until the person finished. So there you have it. I want to talk. I'll make this fairly brief, unless you all want to make it a little more protracted. Boy, that one dropped on the floor, didn't it? Anyway, I know that you all have been working hard on economic development issues here at Penn Branch, and many of you were with us for the Action Summit, the summit that we did back in December. And I think you probably all have received a copy now. We're down to our last 1,000 copies, so you better get them fast. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Maybe you wish you hadn't. Anyway. The Ward 7 Action Plan is a document that came out of the summit that we had back in December. And there are 4 goals that are included in there in the 53 initiatives. And they are focused in one way or the other on Ward 7 issues. First and foremost is restoring public safety to Ward 7 neighborhoods. You know, I have to tell you something. We had a bill, because I'm on the Public Safety and Justice Committee, as well. We had a bill to actually increase the number of police officers on the east end of the District of Columbia. And that bill was the subject of a hearing. How many of you all know we had a hearing on that bill to be able to raise our police, get it back up to 4,000 and then get it to 4,200? Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, it was a huge disappointment to me in the sense that there were only about 8 or 9 witnesses. And you know how many people from Ward 7 were there? How about none? And you know, and I hear people, whatever meeting I go to, I hear people talking about, you know, we need more police officers, we don't see police officers, we need to do whatever we can to bring more police officers to the 6th District.
And then when we have a chance to do something about it, people just didn't show up. So, we've got more bills that will be coming up that we've introduced, and I hope you all will be there to support those bills. But the first priority for us was the public safety issues here in Ward 7. Improving education outcomes is the second of those goals. The third of those goals is bringing economic development amenities to Ward 7, and then improving the quality of life for everyone. And again, we have 53 initiatives that are involved in those 4 goals. And of course, one of the principal ones is to do what it is you all have been talking about, because I've been here at meetings when there's been quite a discussion about economic development, right, Pastor Curry? Yes, sir. And you chair the Economic Development Committee, right? And it's more than just a group of citizens, it seems to me. I mean, I guess you were just trying to, move the agenda along, which is okay. But it's a group of people who are working together, and have been working together for a while, because I've been to meetings where you give them reports. I think you're working with Johns Hopkins, as well as others, to try to bring, additional attention to the east end of the District of Columbia. Anyway, I've introduced some bills, and some of those will be coming up for hearings. Some of them will be over the next 30 to 45 days. And I hope that you all will come down, and hopefully you'll support it. But if you do, don't leave it up to somebody else to come down and speak, on your behalf, or hoping that they will come down. One of them is called the East End Commercial Real Property Tax Rate Reduction Amendment Act of 2017, which is a mouthful. But what that does is something that I think we got a real chance of getting this passed. This is something that's unprecedented in the District of Columbia. And what that would do is it would take the commercial property tax rates in the District of Columbia and reduce them. The commercial property tax rates in the District of Columbia are $1.85 per $100 of assessed value, which is high, but when you look at the rest of the region. The residential rates, on the other hand, are 85 cents, which is less than half of what the commercial rates are. And so this bill would allow, just for Ward 7 and Ward 8, it would have those rates brought from the $1.85 down to the 85 cents. And I don't have any doubt that there are going to be a lot of businesses, some of which are already existing, for those who are questioning whether it would benefit those that already exist. It would benefit any business in Ward 7 and 8. It would bring those rates down and cut them in half. Let's say that the tax bill for a particular business would be $5,000 by where it's located here in Ward 7 and Ward 8. This bill would bring that down to less than $2,500 a year. And we have many businesses that pay more than that. And the idea would be, obviously, to be able to create a much more economical experience for folks who run businesses or want to run businesses on the east end of the city, to get people more interested in being on this end of the city. We have some money in the budget for our Minnesota Avenue organization that will, I know, is working to stimulate more businesses to come to the East End. Is that right, Deborah? That's right. Well, hopefully this bill, if it gets passed, will actually have an impact on getting people to pay more attention to the East End of the District of Columbia and want to move here. I have another bill that's called the East End Healthcare Desert Retail Desert and Food Desert Elimination Act of 2017. And basically this bill would do two things. It would require the construction of a brand new hospital on the grounds of St. Elizabeth's Hospital, which I think is long, in fact I know it's long overdue. It was in the budget previously, which some of you know, my last year as mayor, it was in the budget. We had $36 million in there to be able to build a new hospital and build 2 new clinics. And the then council took it out, which was it was a bad decision in my opinion. I don't know how many of you all have been to the United Medical Center recently, but the United Medical Center is an outdated facility. Many people don't use it. We had some data that showed that of the people who go to a hospital who live in Ward 7 or live in Ward 8, everybody with me? Yes. Only 15% of those people actually go to the United Medical Center. And the reason is that people just don't feel comfortable going down to use the United Medical Center. So this bill would require the construction of a new hospital on the grounds of St. Elizabeth's Hospital. There's a 183-acre site. Some of that land would then be set aside for the construction of a new hospital. When that bill comes up, again, I want to urge you, please come down. You know, if you don't believe in it, you don't believe it. I'm not asking you to say something that you shouldn't say or don't want to say. But if you do, don't let somebody else make your decisions for you. You got to stand up, right, sir? You chair the Economic Development Committee. You got to stand up and speak up, because nobody is going to give us anything over here. I happen to be in a unique position to be able to, I think, to try this again. We're going to work hard to try this again. Right now, what was left from the $336 million that was in the budget, there's $96 million that are left. You're not going to build a hospital with $96 million. And the current budget that has been released by the mayor within the recent days, it has $180 million for a hospital, but it includes the $96 million that was already there. So it adds $84 million to the budget. And you're not going to build a hospital with that either. And the issue is not a hospital. The issue is trying to create a healthcare system on the east end of the District of Columbia that can serve the needs of the people who live over here. We have a growing population, and we need to work to be able to make sure that those amenities are available to the people who live on the east end of the District of Columbia. And of course that has economic implications as well, because of the number of jobs that will come with that. The next part of the bill actually does something that I think is unprecedented also, and that is, it says, you know, okay, you build a hospital, you build this, so why don't we build grocery stores? Why don't we build a grocery store ourselves? Use our tax dollars to do it, and then lease the grocery store, lease the building, excuse me, to an operator of a grocery store for $1 a year. And there would be a number of tax benefits for people. It identifies 5 sites as a start. It would include, it would include Skyland, which of course is still waiting to be developed because of what happened with Walmart there. It would include building something on the St. Elizabeth's campus, and then 3 other sites as well. And there would be tremendous tax benefits for an operator. In addition to getting a building, they would have their property taxes waived. They would have their personal property taxes waived. The deed recordation taxes and transfer taxes would be waived. And the corporate franchise tax and sales taxes for what they sell would be waived for a period of time. All of this having the idea of, let's do whatever we need to do to try to attract people to bring businesses here, in addition to what we're going to attract as a result of the overall property tax reductions that people would experience in the first bill that I mentioned. Some of you know that we put in place an Economic Development Advisory Council, and I want to say we, I want to say me. I put it in place because these are people who I felt could advise me on ways in which we could continue to build the capacity that people want here in Ward 7 especially. And there are 12 people on that body, chaired by Warren Williams, who is the CEO of Warrington, the Warrington Company, and Sandy Wilkes, who is a longtime friend of mine, somebody who I've worked with extensively. He's the chair of the Developers Roundtable and has done a great amount of work in the District of Columbia. In addition to the 2 of them, there are 10 other members, and of the total group, 5 of those folks actually already are doing work in Ward 7. So they have a presence here, so they have a stake here, like Jair Lynch, for example, who now owns, what's the new name? Who does the name? What's the new name?
One name is changed to Video. That's one of the names that's tossing around.
Oh, I thought it was it. You already work? Okay, well, I'll still call it Penn brand. I'll still call it Penn brand. But anyway, the idea is to be able to use this group as a catalyst for being able to stimulate additional development in Ward 7 and on the east end of the city. One of the other things that I'm looking forward to trying to bring is something that I did in another part of the city, and that is technology. Technology is changing the way we live. I brought to downtown Washington as mayor, I brought 1776. How many of y'all are familiar with 1776? It started with nothing. The city invested the first money in helping them to be able to locate on 15th Street Northwest, right across from where the Washington Post used to be. And they have done incredibly well. They have 260 startups that they're working with at this stage. In addition to that, we created a tech corridor on 7th Street. Everybody knows where the convention center is. This tech corridor runs from 7th Street, which is right there, Massachusetts Avenue, all the way north of Georgia Avenue to Petworth. And so that is going to be developing as a tech corridor. And there's no reason why we can't do the same thing in Ward 7. And there's three areas that I would suggest that we should look at. One, of course, is Pennsylvania Avenue, from the Sousa Bridge all the way over to Southern Avenue, or even up to the Prince George's County border. Nanny Helen Boroughs, which is another lengthy area in Ward 7. And then thirdly, Minnesota Avenue, which is also a huge downtown. Ward 7, I guess, is what it's been dubbed as on Minnesota Avenue. So I'm looking to try to bring a technology presence. It's pretty amazing, actually, the number of people who we have in this ward who already are involved in doing technology work. The idea would be to create incentives to bring them to Ward 7 to be able to do the same things and create additional jobs for people here in Ward 7 as well as elsewhere. I know our time is short tonight, Mr. President.
Can you just clarify, you started with a couple of days and you wanted more participation in the hearings. Can you tell us how you can either get the information out so that more of us can participate?
Yes.
So that we can show up the way you're hoping?
If you all will give us, I assume you all have email addresses.
Yes, we do.
If I can get the email addresses, we will make sure that we get a list of the dates out to you.
That's wonderful.
Because we've got the healthcare bills coming up. We've got a couple of these economic development tax bills, because they're in Jack Evans' committee. And Jack Evans is very supportive of what we're trying to do.
The one question I have about the incentives that you laid out for some of the developers is, I think residents are very concerned about the double-digit tax assessments that we're receiving without the amenities to complement that. So before we give away a lot of tax incentives to developers, when there really are fewer places to build and develop as there are here in Ward 7, we're a little concerned that that promise is not going to be upheld to the residents who are carrying the freight.
Well, again, that's a different issue, as you know. Yeah, it's a different issue, and I'm not suggesting that it's not important. What I'm trying to focus on right now is how we catalyze bringing more amenities to Ward 7, not discounting by any stretch of the imagination the fact that we see our property taxes going up, because I see it myself. I live right down the street on Branch Avenue, and I see the values going up, which of course means that the property taxes are going up as well. And I'll be happy to work with you all on what we can do about that. But if you work with me, I'd like to try to see if we can get these first two through at this point, because it will reduce the taxes, the property taxes for businesses that actually operate in Ward 7, including businesses that are already here. One of the important things that will emanate from this is, I think, it will be an inducement for additional businesses to come. What we're trying to work on now is it can't be just the property taxes, because a lot of times we have situations where the person or the entity that owns the taxes, owns the property, may not be operating the businesses. So we're working on trying to figure out how we make sure that those dollars that would be saved pass through to the businesses as well. Because I know if you look at East River Park, that's owned by I won't say a conglomerate, but it's owned by a big company. And to give them the benefit of the tax breaks, it doesn't get us where we want to get. Because there's no guarantee without mandates that that benefit would be passed along then to the businesses that are located there. So that's a piece of the bill that we're working on now to try to make sure that it does have to be passed along to those who are actually operating the businesses. And again, it doesn't discount the issue you raised, because that is an important issue. And given the fact that our city is doing extremely well and has now for a number of years financially, it's going to be a bigger demand. There'll be increasingly large numbers of people who want to move east in the District of Columbia, and that's going to, it's a basic law of supply and demand, that there's no more land being created, and when the more people that want to live over here, the more it's going to drive up the price of the properties, the value of the properties, and the associated taxes. So I fully appreciate what it is you're talking about, but I'd like to try to see if we can get this, these business bills through over the next 2 to 3 months.
I appreciate it.
Laura? Say it again. You talking about the senior tax bill that I have introduced, the one that we introduced and got left out before. I'm working with the chairman now. I saw you in the Wilson building, I guess yesterday or the day before yesterday or whatever, in the last couple of days, and we've got to prevail upon the chairman to let Mr. Evans have a hearing on that bill. For those of you who know about the senior citizen tax bill, basically what that would do is to say that anybody over a certain age, anybody who has owned their home for 20 years and is below a certain income, we can go over the criteria another time if you want to, we don't have time tonight, but that bill actually got passed. Anita Bonds and I worked on that back when I was mayor, my last year as mayor. I had put $8.5 million in the budget to be able to fund it, and it was taken out of the budget. And also, there's another piece of it too, which you've added, Laura, that you've worked hard on, and that is the, eliminating the taxes imposed on pension benefits, annuities, for want of a better way of putting it. And we need to have a hearing on that bill. And frankly, I'd be very happy, delighted if you all sent the chairman an email saying that we need a tax on that, and we need a hearing on that bill.
We have a petition tried.
Okay, well, I'd love to have a copy of that, because I'm going to meet with him either tomorrow or day after tomorrow, and that's on my agenda to talk about the need for a hearing to be held on that bill. And it's more than worthy because it's going to benefit a lot of people who live over in Ward 7 and Ward 8. We have a lot of people who would qualify as seniors who live in Ward 7 and who deserve the benefit, and we would have had it not been taken out before. I've never been able to really fully understand why it was taken out, because it was a tremendous benefit to me, to a lot of people. We talk about keeping people in the city. We ought to be working hard to make sure that the opportunities that are before us are made available to folks, because there's a lot of people who would be eligible for this bill who might move otherwise and will stay because of this benefit that will be available to them. So, I know you send out a lot of emails and communication, Laura, so I would appreciate if you could get you and your team to be able to send an email to the chairman, also asking him to support a hearing being held by Mr. Evans on this. Yep. Gladys.
Mr. Ray, could you talk to us a little bit about the surplus that you can, we discussed that before, there's a lot in the paper about it, and I still don't know what you're doing with the surplus.
You're talking about the surplus that the city has experienced?
Yes.
Okay, the city is doing well financially, and we've done well now, probably extremely well for the last 6, 7, 8 years. And this past year we had a surplus, and we're going to have another surplus this year, because we've already got, we've already got evidence that additional money will be coming in over and above what the budget, the budget has been established at. Anyway, the surplus has been several $100 million over the last several years. And one of the things that we were trying to get to was having 60 days of operating cash in the bank, which is the gold standard as established by the Government Finance Officers Association. What I had done as mayor was put in place a bill that is now increasingly important, and that is, once we get to the 60 days, and if there's more of a surplus, where does the money go? The money goes in two directions. Half of it goes to affordable housing, and the other half goes to what we call pay-as-you-go, which is just a fancy term for, do like what a lot of us do, and that is, you don't incur a credit card bill. If I want to buy that camera right there, I'll pay for it, when I make the purchase. So that's why it's called PAYGO. Now, the PAYGO capital, what I'm proposing in one of these bills when I talked about the hospital was that half that has to go to PAYGO, let's take that half and use it to build the new hospital over here on the east end of the District of Columbia. That's why it's so important to have you guys on that bill when it comes up for a hearing, to have you there standing up and saying, hey, look, we know where the money is going to come from, and I want you all to support it because we desperately need a real healthcare system on the east end of the city, and we need to make the investments to build a new hospital because it will be a catalyst for being able to create a real healthcare system. So, yes, there is a surplus. There probably will be another one at the end of this fiscal year, maybe another one even next fiscal year as well. But it's not so much a question of whether there's a surplus, it's how we then choose to use the money that will be available to us to spend for other purposes. Because again, 60 days is the standard. We're at 56 days now, so I got 4 more days to go.
The reason, can I continue? The reason I asked you, because I had the firemen at my house pump some water out. They didn't even have pumps on their trucks. So they wasted like 5 or 6 hours trying to get pumps from other places. And they're saying that it's not in the budget and whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. The city is never going to deprive itself of creating the kind of fire apparatus that's necessary to make sure people are safe. I've heard many stories, and sometimes the stories are true, sometimes they're not. And this is one of those where I question. There's a bunch of people who will not take responsibility for stuff. They'll just make sure they pass it on to somebody else. Yes.
My name is Dr. Burton. I'm a pediatrician down here in Southeast, and you keep mentioning a new hospital, and you mentioned that there is currently a hospital in Southeast. Before you arrived, some of the members of the community, such as myself, discussed restoring and revitalizing what we already have instead of building something new. Can you please explain why you want to build a new hospital rather than invest in the one that's already here?
Because it's completely outdated and antiquated. That hospital, wait a minute, I was going to answer your question. That hospital, it was built in 1966. It's 51 years old. It was built for 450 patients. As a physician, nobody would build a hospital like that anymore because nobody's going to stay in the hospital that long. People used to stay in the hospital 5 or 6 days back in the day when this place was built. And that was okay because that was customary then. But now, things that people stay in the hospital 4 or 5 or 6 days for, they're ambulatory. As a physician, you know that well. Whatever you're going to do, you get it done, you go home. And not only that, it doesn't attract practitioners, specialists who are needed for the people that we have over here. That's why we have so many people who leave Ward 7 and leave Ward 8 and go across to the other side of the city. Let me give you just one piece of information. I was talking to some folks last week from Providence Hospital. Providence, in 2016, they had 10,000 of their patients that came from zip codes 220, 219, and 232. Those are people who should be able to go to healthcare services right in our own community. And we just don't have it. We have no urgent care center. East of North Capitol Street, there's no urgent care center. And then people get criticized for going to an emergency room, an emergency department. What are they supposed to do? There's no other place to go because there's no urgent care center. We got a clinic here and a clinic there. We got one off of Kenilworth Avenue. We got another one over in Community of Hope. We got one on Minnesota Avenue in Unity. But there's no really tightly knit integrated healthcare system over here. And that's what really I'm trying to create. It isn't just creating a new hospital. It's trying to use the hospital as a catalyst for creating a panoply of health services that people will then feel like is serving their community. And I'd be happy to debate with anybody the adequacy of what we have is called healthcare over in this end of the city. I'd be happy to have that discussion, in addition to you. And by the way, again, as a physician, you would appreciate the nature of this, but we only have, for 140,000 people, that's the population of Ward 7, the population of Ward 8, for 140,000 people in the aggregate, we have 120 physicians, primary care and specialists that practice on this end of the city. That is completely inadequate, as I'm sure you know as a physician. So the idea of creating first-class facilities would be to say we have a reason for people to come and practice, why they should practice here, and also to give them an incentive to do so as well. Are you aware of? I see your hand. I got you. Are you aware of the loan reimbursement program that we put in place? Okay. You know what? I've talked to physicians who have no idea that it exists. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, we have a program that I did the legislation for that says if you're willing to work in an underserved area, which all of Ward 7 and most of Ward 8 are underserved areas, you can, over a period of 4 years, get your loans from medical school completely repaid. The first year is 18%, the last year is like 30%, and you put them together, that's 100% of your education loan that's available to you.
Every year, so less and less physicians even get that.
What'd you say?
That program keeps being defunded every year.
Well,
It wasn't even offered last year.
but so many people don't know about it. Yeah, and I need you to help make the case for why these things are important. It will help to bring practitioners to areas of the city where we don't have enough at this stage. Because where there's shortage areas, if people actually, will work in those areas, they can get a huge financial incentive. I mean, I'll say this because you're a physician. Most physicians, virtually everybody I've ever met, they're mission driven. They want to do good work with people. But people get driven by the need to make sure they can make ends meet, including paying their loans. And so then they work where they have to. There's a lot of physicians who I think would want to work in these communities if they weren't burdened, saddled with the huge burden, the huge payment that they have to incur to pay off the education loans. So, get me on my soapbox now.
All right.
Are we done? Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you all very much.
So, thank you very much. And before we wrap up, I just want to call attention to everyone. Don't forget, you can find out about the hearings that Councilman Gray mentioned. We'll put them on our website. info@PennBranchDC is our email, and PennBranch.dc is our website. So thank you very much, and we will follow up, so stay tuned to our website. I'll be around to talk to people afterwards. Dr. Burton, we're going to put you on the committee. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thanks to our panel. Really appreciate it. Thanks. My birds.